He's going to show us some hands-on stuff. And then he's going to be able to answer any questions we might have about it. So thank you, Jason, for being here today. We're all really excited about the content. Few housekeeping things. So, of course, I know we talk about this every time, but this is a safe space. We're not here to sell you anything. And if we have conversations about maybe what we're currently doing or how we're using our technology, that stays within this group. It is a safe space to talk about those things, get opinions, get feedback, get recommendations. We want to make sure everyone's feeling comfortable to have those conversations. And just wanted to say that we're not here to sell anything. So there's our little disclosure. This is going to be our 60 seconds on the exam. So Marketo Certified Expert exam has changed. It's now going to be the Adobe Certified Expert in Marketo Engage Business Practitioner. So there's two ways that you can get it. So there's one, that's the former MCE exam. And then there's a new exam that was created by Marketo champions. We will be sharing these decks out. There is a link here where you can get more information, and for funsies, whoops, I opened it up, but now I'm not going to be able to find it. I did open it up. I went there. It gives very similar outlines to, the old exam where it's this many questions. This is how much it costs. Here's some study guide materials. Here's some sample questions. So all those are available on the website. So no surprises there. And sounds like Jason's going to be the first of our group taking that exam. So I'll be sending him luck in September.
Good luck. Question real quick on that. Do you need to have the first one before you jump into the champion one? Or if it's expired, can you jump right into the champion one? Does anyone know?
Honestly, I'm not quite sure.
No, they're just two. So the top one there, E552, is going to be getting expired eventually. So eventually they're all just going to be E554, but there's this period where you can decide which one you want to take. If you want to take the old one, you can, but if you want to take the new one, which will become the standard moving forward, you can take that. So it's really just up to you which one you take.
I see. Wasn't there a newer one? Not a newer one, but higher level one as well? Or is that just those are the only two really?
There's the solution architect one, right?
Well, and like below, there's also, in addition to the cert, yeah, exactly. There's a Marketo certified associate or something along those lines where it's not as in-depth as the expert.
I see. Cool. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and I think the solutions architect is more so for like consultants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very
Good
cool.
question. So the last slide here is a question that we have for you guys. So now that, the pandemic is coming to a nice slow roll, we have vaccinations. I know there are some groups that are starting to get together again. So just wanted to gauge a little bit of, what does our future look like? And should we be getting together? Are we not ready to get together? We do know that we have some people that aren't in Wisconsin or people that are in Wisconsin that are a little bit further away as to where we might want to consider maybe like virtual educational sessions, but still do like in-person meetups for networking. So there's a lot of different ways we could do this moving forward, but wanted to get a gauge of where we're at. So Jay created a nice little poll for us.
Super fancy poll.
Did everyone get the pop-up of the poll in your screen?
I did. You should have added something in there with like, will there be alcohol included?
That's a given, man. Come on.
Always.
If Coleman's around, then of course, right?
Will you accommodate for introverts like myself?
Right. All right. I think that's everyone. All right. Dear District on Saturday then. I think that's everyone. Cool. Well, that's good. I think we'll have to talk about when and where, right, Kelly? When we'll meet next. It'll be good to see people in person again.
I would love that. I would really, really love that. So yeah, we'll get Michael on the phone and we'll see if he wants to host.
Yep.
All right, so without further ado, we wanted to make sure we spent the most time digging into Jason's content. So Jason, go ahead, take it away. Run us through
Okay.
everything great Workato.
Okay, thank you, Kelly and Jay. All right, so you should be able to see my screen here. And first thing, I just wanted to kind of outline the goal of today's call and even start off by saying that this is really aimed at an audience of, kind of the everyday Marketo user. So although we're talking about something that may be more developer focused, I myself am not a developer certainly, but have found great ways to utilize the Marketo API to automate a lot of tasks that used to be very manual. So I'm hoping that that audience will get it. In fact, there's probably a lot more I could be doing if I had more of that technical knowledge, but just so I'm level setting here that it's not expected that you have that. In fact, if you don't, even better, because I'm going to show you stuff today that I think will help, again, kind of the average user. So the goal of today's call is to save you time, to eliminate manual tasks and ultimately make your life better, as Kelly said at the beginning here. So I also say it this way, where Marketo obviously can automate or help you automate your marketing, but then what helps automate Marketo? So that's where a great deal of focus on this call will be. And that's a rabbit hole, by the way, at least according to Google image search. So we're going down the rabbit hole. First thing you'll want to do, this page is going to become your best friend. This here is the developer docs, and here are the endpoint references too. So this is basically everything that you can do with the API in Workato, and you can see it's broken down really by object here. So if you wanted to see what's all available for programs, we can see there's calls to get a program name, get programs by tags. You can also update programs with information. So anything that you're going to need can really be found on this page. And when you click here, it's going to give you the JSON response. And then also any parameters, which I'll cover a little bit when I talk about Postman, but all of the information that you'll need to make a call is essentially right here. And then also, if you go down, it's kind of duplicative a little bit, but there's also assets down here. And again, if you click on programs, and let's say we wanted to create a program, we can click here and it gives you even more information on how to do that. So really this page is your best friend. There's way too much to cover, so I'm not going to go through a lot on here, but just make sure that you have this page bookmarked as I do. So things to know about using APIs though, and this is just very basic things, is you do need to have an API user. So that's different than your normal user to log in. So you'll need to create a user with API permissions, and you can also edit those permissions for other people too if you want to tie back on exactly what API calls they have access to. You can certainly do that. And then you need to create a new launch point service with that user. So even move this to the side here. And if I go into my admin section here and I see launch point, we have a ton of them. But then I have my JSON-R service here. So that's what you'll need to do as well after you have that API user created. But then with that,
can I ask a question?
Sure.
Those API users, do those go against your user? Like say you've purchased 100 licenses and you have 49 API users. Do those go against your user licenses? Do you know?
I don't know. It would be my assumption they would, but I've never ran into that. That's a great question. I don't know.
Okay, thanks. Internally.
Yeah. Like I said, I haven't ran into that, but certainly can find out.
Thanks.
There is a daily limit of API calls that you can make, and the default is 50K. I know you can buy more. And as technology keeps increasing and being integrated with Marketo, I'm sure those calls will get higher and higher. A lot of clients right now aren't anywhere near there, but I think as things grow, like in the Martech, Scott Brinker's image that he does, graph that he does every year, that number is going to grow. So just to be mindful of that. and also to batch jobs when possible. So I'll talk a little bit about that when I show it in Postman, but anytime that you can batch API calls, it's really beneficial. So especially if something doesn't need to be done on a one-by-one basis. And also just some other things to know, 100 calls per 20 seconds and 10 concurrent API calls. And also most of what you'll see when you go to that documentation are either gets, which gets information, or posts, which updates information. So when you see that, let me just go back here for a second. Because I'll just grab forms here. We'll see that there's get and then post. So you'll just need to know that when making the call on which one it is.
Hey, Jason.
Yes.
One thing to note is I've actually been in a system that reached its daily API call limits. And of course, when that happens, there's APIs that don't go through, and it does leave you a nice little message in your messages area in Marketo to let you know that you've reached that daily limit. So that might be a good thing to check, is to see how many calls you're making.
Yep. And it's I don't have it as part of this, but we could actually use a Workato recipe, I believe, to like maybe send yourself an alert if you're within 5,000 calls of your limit. You could send an alert to someone on the team. So interesting use case that I'm going to make note of for when I update this.
Cool.
Thank you for bringing that up. So the tools that I'm going to use today are Postman and Workato, and generally. So Postman is a free tool that you can use for API testing, but there's actually a lot you can do with it with Marketo. So that's the first one I'm going to show you. Workato is what's called an iPaaS integration platform as a service. That is a paid service. So not everyone will have access to that, but it'll give you a general overview of what an iPaaS tool can do. So again, they may not always be the exact same, but general workflow and logic will be. And then these last two are just things that I'll use when we're actually making the API calls. And I'll get these slides to Kelly, so when she sends them out after, you'll have these links too, if you want to access them. I'm actually not going to go over this now because this is more for the setup, but it'll be helpful if you're looking at setting up Postman. Same thing here. It just tells you, obviously, you need to authenticate to show that you have permission to access the data in Marketo. So it's just telling you how to do that. So first thing I wanted to do was go over some quick wins, and these are all going to be in Postman. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to get a list of forms. So when I come into Postman, first thing, and I skipped over this part, but just so you know, when you're looking through the docs, is you need to create an environment which has your client ID and client secret, and you can get that from the launch point service. So when we, now I'm going to come up here, and in fact, before I authenticate, I'm going to try to run this. So this is just a form to get all forms. But it does it by default 20 at a time. So I'm just going to click send. And we'll see I got access token denied because I didn't run the authentication. So now I actually have these as variables, so I can just click send here. And we'll see now I have, it's 1 hour. So I believe that's in seconds. So now I can try running this again. And again, this call, let me go back here so you can see what I'm doing. I am using the get forms endpoint. And when I scroll down here, I'll see that it'll let you know if anything is required, but we have an offset and a max return. And the offset is just kind of telling Marketo where to pick up. So you always start at 0, but you can get up to 200 results at a time. So if you wanted to run that once, but then wanted to get the next batch, you would have to change the offset to 20 or to 200, I should say. And then after that one, change it to 400. So that's how the max return and offset work. And it says here, the default is 20, but the default is 20, but the max is 200. So now if I just run this as is, we'll see that I get 20 results because I haven't put in anything and I haven't put in an offset or anything. So it kind of just takes the default. However, if I put in my parameters here, offset is 0 and max return is 200, you'll see that it added it to the call up here, parameters. And now I'll actually get a 200. And this is great. We can see that we're getting the ID, we're getting the name, the description, the theme, a whole bunch of information about this form. Now, in this form, it's not terribly useful, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Save the Response to a file. And we'll just save it there. And then there is this tool that I found where you can upload a JSON file, and it'll put it in a nice chart for you so that you can download this as an Excel file. But we can see it got all of the IDs, the form names, again, when they were created, when they were updated, which folders they live in, what the button is. So this is really a great tool to be able to use that. So you can use this and then, like I said, get the file. But then if I wanted to then run this to get the next 200, I would have to change the offset to 200 and then click send again. But that's only using one API call to get 200 results. So this is what I talked about earlier. We're wanting to make use of that because I also could call each form individually by either its name or ID. But every time I do that, it's going to use one API call. So if I can get 200 results from one call, that's obviously beneficial.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah.
Is there a way to tell if you have more than 200? So like, you know, if I should have known to
Yeah,
run it again with 400?
If you keep going through this, eventually it's going to say no results found. So you just kind of have to keep going through it. And once you get to no results found, it'll just stop.
Cool.
Good question.
And Tucker asked the question, Postman and that JSON converter, they are both free. The answer is yes, right?
Yep, exactly. I've just started using this JSON. So internally, we have an awesome guy on our team named Paul, and he actually built a Python script, which does essentially what the JSON converter does. So I just started playing around with it while preparing for this presentation. So I don't know if there's limitations to how much data you can get, but in general, yes, it's free. Postman is definitely free, unless you're going to be doing things with big teams or something. But for all of my purposes, it has been. All right, next thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create some tokens. So I'm going to come up to my Postman program. And as you can see, I have no tokens in here, but I want to create some very quickly. So what I can do, I'm going to use a thing called the runner. And you'll see that from here, I just have the folder type is program. This is the folder, the folder ID. And just so you know, one thing that's confusing is a folder can either be a folder or it can be a program. So in this case, the folder type is program. It can also be a folder type of folder, which is, makes perfect sense. But this is the folder ID. This is the name of the token. This is the token type, and then this is the value. So I'm just going to download this as a CSV. We'll see here, this is my my API call, and anything that you see in the double curly braces is a variable, and you'll see that it matches up perfectly with what these headers are. They have to match perfectly or this won't work, but essentially I'm going to run through each line, and it's going to grab the information from that variable. So when we see that here, so now I'm just going to come up here, I'm going to click run, there we are. And I'm just going to use the create tokens one. I'm going to select my file. It shows up here that there's 5. And here's the thing where I put in, if you remember earlier, that we can't go over 100 calls in 20 seconds. So I always set the delay to 200 milliseconds, which should space it out so that we don't. And here there's only 5 calls anyways, but if we're getting into thousands, you want to be mindful of that. So I'm just going to click run. And now when we come up to our program, let me refresh. There's the tokens. So, and one thing you might want to do, and you can also do this if you still have access to Sky, it's actually, you could also clone from there, but otherwise you could download tokens from a folder if you just wanted to basically import them and then re-import them. You just have to update the program ID. So that's a real time saver that I've used quite a bit.
Hey, Jason, and sorry if I missed this, but like, say you were, you know, if you were creating like a series of events in Marketo and you had a bunch of different events, and obviously the tokens might be different for those, the dates, the times, guest speakers, whatever. In that runner spreadsheet that you had, can you post these tokens to more than one program in one, in one post?
Yeah, as long as you have the program ID. Yep.
Okay.
And it would also update too. So it's called create, but if the token already exists, it would update it.
Awesome. Okay.
And I'm just going to go through these other two here relatively quickly, but go back here to this Postman. So here we can see I have 10 landing pages and they're all using this form, but now we come in here, we edit this form. And we add a field here, which is, so we're adding company name, finish, approve, which is great. Form is updated, but now we have 10 drafts that we need to approve, which could be time consuming if you had to go in and manually do it, especially when we're talking about potentially hundreds and thousands if a form is used over and over again. So again, I'm going to come back down here to Marketo. I'm using this LPID, and let me see. I think it's actually in a different spreadsheet. So let me look at, oh, same one. Oh, 1 second. Here we are. So, and the next test I'm going to do is a smart campaign ID, but I'm going to download this one file. And because I'm using the variable that's only looking for LPID or SCID, this will work perfectly fine. So I'm just going to download this. And now when I come up here to approve landing page, I'm again going to go back into the runner. This time select all, just approve this. And I'm just going to run. And we'll even see that they're being approved right before our eyes. So this is pretty cool. And then the last thing that what's that?
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a huge. It makes you not so weary to make updates to assets, knowing that you have to approve them. So,
Yes.
yep.
Jason, quick question. So what you've done kind of before as pre-work, you added the Git code from the developer page in Postman that's looking at those landing page IDs, and that's how it.
Exactly. So
okay.
you hit the nail on the head here, where you would have to do a call to get them beforehand, but I did that for the sake of time. But you're exactly right.
Perfect.
All right.
That makes sense. Thank you.
And now, you know, there's a big issue with our smart campaign, so we need to deactivate them while we get something fixed here. So I'm just going to do a new run. This time I'm going to do the deactivate call, and I'm going to run this and go back to here, and we'll see now all of the smart campaigns are turned off. So again, huge time saver. You can also reactivate. If you notice that there's a whole bunch of smart campaigns that have been deactivated, you can use the activate endpoint. So any questions on Postman? I'm sure there's a lot, but any immediate questions on Postman?
I have one question. I was a little confused. What's a use case you would pull all your forms on that first one you did?
Actually, there's it's kind of been my whole life right now, to be quite honest. So we have a client, I'm doing a global form updates. We need to see all the forms that are being used, where they're being used. We can't tell, obviously, if they're embedded, we won't know that. But also, and you'll actually see in a Workato use case here, sometimes it's just nice to have that documented to see what's all out there. If you can, it's a little bit easier to work with than trying to do that all within Marketo. But I would say it's really just helpful anytime you want to audit your instance to be able to see, what's all been created and the current status. And, even if, go ahead.
Could you update an individual field value within multiple forms using this, man?
I believe there is, I haven't used it before, but there is, if we go back here, there's form field endpoints. So I would have to investigate these because I haven't actually done that. And I think, I was talking with Sandy once, and I think it's a little bit more complicated than things I've already showed you, but.
No, that's an incredibly helpful use case. I think we had to do this once where we added some new country values a while back. And we, at the time, were a newer instance, we had something like 150 or so forms with country on it. And it was a very long manual process. If we could have done something like this, it would have saved hours. Yep.
Yeah. And that's that. I know you can definitely do a get to do that. So you can get available form fields and then get fields for form. So what you'd have to do is do the get all forms essentially. From there, you can create that ID variable and then run this endpoint, and then it'll lay it all out for all of them. So yeah, you can definitely do it that way. That one I have done. I just haven't updated form fields with it.
Yeah, another kind of similar use case that that we actually had pretty recently was, you talked about you can't really tell where the forms are being embedded, but we happen to embed a lot of forms on our main website, and so the CMS we use is Sitecore. So the team that was they're doing a big refresh on our website, and I was basically able to provide them all of the IDs for forms that we're using on our website, and it helped them kind of basically validate that they're using the right IDs on the right pages and things like that.
And you use this?
What's that?
Did you use Postman?
No, I didn't, but I should have. It would have been a lot easier.
We have the same thing. We also use Sitecore, and that's something I just kind of avoided. It's a tough question to answer.
Yeah.
Cool.
One of my biggest pet peeves is unapproved drafts. And so Jason, your example with the form, but we're getting ready to update email templates, and just being able to mass approve those and clean it up is genius. Yep. I'm very excited.
I was going to say, I like to say that one of my biggest strong points is I'm very lazy. So I don't want to do anything that's not absolutely necessary. It's somewhat tongue in cheek. I do, though. I don't like doing manual tasks, especially if there's an easy way to automate them, which is exactly the use cases that I just showed you.
I think there's a difference between lazy and efficient, and I think we're just optimal at making things efficient, which is great.
Yeah.
There you go, Tucker.
Yeah, I'd probably just add, my experience with Postman is pretty slim. I haven't done much, but several months ago, if I would have seen some of this stuff for the first time, it can look a little intimidating at first, because it's a lot of it's new. It's not really covered in the typical Marketo documentation. It looks like stuff a developer should be doing because some of it looks like code. But it's really, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's not as hard as it looks like. I feel like find that use case where it's I don't want to do this 200 times. And once you do one post, it kind of clicks.
As I said, they're kind of all the same, essentially. Yeah. I mean, you're either getting data or you're updating data, and there's a few parameters you can change, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so now I'm going to go into some Workato use cases, and this is again an integration platform. So what I have set up here, this first one here is the email validator. So these are your recipes are built out. So I don't know if anyone has ever used Eloqua before, but it's kind of similar. There's a canvas here where you can build your logic flow, which is really nice. And just like you can in Marketo, obviously you can use a lot of conditional statements and to as you're going along within the process. So what this one is doing, and let me share this, I'm using actually a free API here, and it's only 100 requests a month. So not necessarily business focused, right? And I think everyone's gonna have more than 100 new leads per month, but even as you scale up from there, even $50 a month for 50,000 requests isn't all that much. So just so you know, I'm just showing you the free one today. But this is a really cool tool where it'll give you, it'll look at an email address. It's going to provide you, first of all, it'll autocorrect anything. So if you get those email addresses where it's .com and then there's an N after the end of the M, it's going to correct that to what it thinks it should be. So like common mistakes, it fixes. It also tells you if it's in a valid format. It looks to see if it's on a disposable email list, and here's some of the services. If it's a free email, I know that's a question that people want to always look at on the forums, which can be hard to do, but it'll actually look at that as well. And this is the response you'll get. And then also if it's like a role like sales at, or if it's a catch-all email that doesn't necessarily have to be tied to a specific person at a company. So I thought it'd be an interesting use case to show how to do this. And just to explain this flow a little bit, we're catching a webhook from Marketo. We're calling this validate email API. And then from here, I'm looking to see, is it undeliverable? Is it, I forget exactly how these match up, but I think, is it like a disposable email? So I'm basically looking to see if it's a disposable email, is it a catch-all, is it a role? If any of those are true, I want to update the field in Marketo and change it to marketing suspended for that lead. If not, we're flowing through here. And if autocorrect is present, I'm coming into Marketo and I'm actually going to update my email address to the autocorrect email address. And finally, I'm scrolling down. One more thing. And this is just a fix on the previous one for deliverability, but otherwise, I'm using opt-in 2 here as a, they have a, like a deliverability score, and then also just this, if you can deliver to it. So I think once I run this, it'll make more sense. So let me go up to my program here. And now I need to remember, here we go. So, okay, and that's the API call that it's making. So let me, I'll just go here and I'll submit a form on this page. So I'm just going to do, and you'll see that, and let me actually, it's kind of in the way, but I'll put plus. Okay, so I don't think you can see it, but there's actually an N at the end of the .com. I'm just going to leave those other two. I'm going to submit. And okay, it's processing the event here. It still isn't. Let me actually go up to my emails, because I think this will be better for it anyways. Okay, so here is my lead I just created. All right, so as we can see, after the new call to the webhook, it changed marketing suspended from false to true because I had a bad email address, which was COMN or .comn. So the next step, I actually changed it from that to the correct one. Then I changed marketing suspended from true to false because now I have the proper one. And also we had the undeliverable in there. But so now let me just do it one more time. And I'm going to do a real one this time. I will do and this time I'll use my work email and I'll submit that. And now it does take a second. So, okay, so now on this one, so this one, it doesn't, it's unknown what type of email address it is, but it's not free, it's not disposable. So it did all those checks. So this is just a really helpful way to do this. Again, if you ever want to automatically populate, free email addresses when they come in to separate that out, a tool like this would be really helpful. And I should mention, if I go back to the recipe here, that you can add more things in too. So it doesn't just have to be Marketo. If you're using something like Clearbit or Zoom Info, you can make that part of this flow too to clean up the data. So this could really be your intake flow that takes place out of Marketo, but that you bring the data all clean back into Marketo. So it's doing less on the Workato side, or less, too many similar names, doing less on the Marketo side and using this data from other sources. Or if you want to check something in Salesforce before you would bring it back into Marketo, you can do that. So you can bring in different services as part of this.
Hey, Jason, real specific question for you. Is there a way using this to correct, when somebody fills out a form, correct their name to be like proper case instead of like all caps or all lowercase?
100%. Yep. So actually, I might just need to edit this one quick here.
I don't want to like sidetrack you.
No, that's okay. So I think it's important to talk about because that's really a cool feature. So we'll come here and I grabbed the wrong one. All right, so back in here, I'm going to stop that recipe. I'm going to edit it. And now let's say that we want to update this lead in Marketo. And again, let's say that a tool like this you grab from the previous steps. So let's say on this webhook, I wanted to grab a first name, which I could do. I can also then add a formula to this, where then I can do, I forget exactly what it is, title case, or if you wanted to capitalize, you can do that. And that's going to do that in that flow. So actually, one of the things I don't have ready for today yet, but I'm working on a list import for Workato, where essentially it does that, right? Because a lot of what we see on list imports is a lot of manual data cleaning, making sure that there's no extra white space, making sure that there's no that all the states are coming in, or countries, in a uniform fashion. You can do that all right within these formulas and then get the data right into Marketo. So that was a great question. And yes, something that's definitely able to be done, and a huge benefit of using something like this. Phone numbers too, you can make sure that the phone numbers are standardized. So that's why I think this new person intake type of recipe is really helpful, because you can do a lot of that to make sure that it's all correct right off the bat.
That's awesome. Thanks, Jason.
Yep. So the second one that I'm going to do is getting bulk activities from Marketo. So obviously we can create smart campaigns to see form fills, but it doesn't really tell us which form was filled on which day by which person without looking into the activity log. But since the form fill is retained for 25 months, we can still pull that via the new lead activity batch. And in Workato, a lot of these are available right out of the box. So one of them is new lead activity batch in Marketo. And just when we look to set this up, we're looking for filled out forms. And then we're just saying for each of these activities, we're going to accumulate them to a list. And ultimately, we're going to upload this file right into Google Drive for us. So I'm just going to click run. And then we'll see. Here it is. I can see which leads filled out which forms on which day. Here it'll give you the form ID, the form name, the email address, and you can add in more Marketo information about the lead itself. So I'm just using email address right now, but this is really helpful because a lot of times there is that question of which leads actually filled out which forms, not necessarily just in the last 90 days, but has a lead filled it out multiple times. And how often even from this, you can see how often our forms being used over time. You can do some work in Excel or Google Sheets to see, really create a pivot table off this to see when these forms are getting filled out. So I think this is one of the most valuable calls that there is out there, especially for these. And we're seeing this a lot now where people are using, not people, but companies are using the bulk activity extract to get data into like a data warehouse or data lake. I know there's a difference between the two, but like Snowflake, right? So that they can own their data and they don't have to worry about those data retention policies, and they can also report on. So, if you know about how Marketo email reporting works, it's kind of saying, it kind of looks to see who was sent this email and who opened it. And if you clicked it, they assume you opened it, so they'll add one for the open. But when you get that data yourself, you can almost do your own reporting. So certainly not to disrespect Marketo's reporting, but sometimes you want to have that granularity there, which is another reason you'd use something like this, and then you can just control your data.
Jason, quick question. Oh.
No, Tucker, you go first.
I was going to ask, can you pull in refer information, for instance, like the query string data?
Good question. I don't, yeah, I was going to say, I don't know. There may be a way to get that. It wasn't available right in this call. Yeah, it'd be interesting to find out. I haven't tried that.
Yeah, another question along the same lines is, do you know if you're able to export like, I think they're called program member custom fields for this type?
I don't, and I could look it up, but I don't know offhand.
Last tricky question for you. So similar to Tucker's question about refer code or refer, is there a way to look at form and then have it populate which web page it came from in the case of global form?
Yeah, and I think that would be along the same line as refer. So I'd have to see if there's a way to get at that. Generally, since it is available like on the activity in the log, I would think it would be, but I'm not exactly sure.
That's okay. Thank you.
Great questions, though. I like it. It's all the things that I haven't thought of. So next thing that I'll just show very quick here. If you're ever using custom objects, there is a way to add something to that as well. So the way I'm going to show it here is just with a car, but this could be anything. I know that there's some event platforms that utilize custom objects, and sometimes you're kind of tied to what that native integration is, where having a tool like this really opens things up. So you can use those triggers that happen in another system and decide when to push that data into Marketo. And to Jay's point earlier, you can also format it so it looks exactly like you want. I know for one thing, like LinkedIn lead gen forms and Facebook lead gen forms, you can't control the source, right? Where here, you could just send it to a thing like Workato. You can change the source to whatever you want it to be, and then you're in more control over it. So in the example that I'm going to show here is we're just going to create a car, and I have to remember where this one is at. So I'll just do. And hit And the way that, sorry, 1 second. The way that I have this one working is that this is off of a query, off of a web page, where I think most of the time, this would just really be a query from like a database, but for simplicity's sake, I'm just using a spreadsheet here. So I'm coming over to this sheet that I have. I'm going to paste that in, and then while I do that, I'll show. So in the recipe, I'm looking for a new row is added to the sheet. I'm actually going to search the leads in Marketo for that ID. I'm creating a variable here, which will always tie the ID, because if this was like when a person became known to us, they aren't going to have an ID yet. So I'm looking to see if their ID is not present. I'm going to create the lead in Marketo, and then I'm going to grab the updated lead ID as the variable. And then when I come to the mapping here for date purchased, lead ID, make, mileage, model, and year for the custom object, I can reference this. So it's either essentially saying, if there is a person, it's going to grab this. If there wasn't a person, it's going to grab this. Let's see here. And let me go see if my person was created here yet. Should be using different email addresses to keep this better. What was the one that I just created?
It was the Reichsleiter J.
Yeah. Okay. So here we are. And when we come to the custom object, if I go to car, we'll see that now all of my information is in here. So hopefully that's useful. And I know we're up against time. I do want to show one last thing I think is really neat. For anyone who is ever tried to do an event cap, there's actually a way to do this in Workato. So I have two ways of doing it. The first one that I'm going to do is just by switching the landing pages and updating the tokens. And I'll show you when I come here. So this is my program. You'll see I have an active landing page. I have a waitlist landing page. And then I have a smart campaign for added to register and added to waitlist. And on the waitlist, I'm just referencing the waitlist landing page. So what I'm doing when I come back here, too many tabs. So I'm calling a webhook every time someone registers. I'm looking at this sheet is where I have my program ID. I just put my capacity on here. So this is what I'm always going to be evaluating against. I have my active landing page ID, my waitlist landing page ID, and the CTA copy that I want updated when it is full. So just taking you through here, I'm looking to see, oh, and there's also a column for full, which will get changed to yes once it is full. But I'm looking to see if it is full, I'm going to stop this recipe. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to get the member count in Marketo. And then if I'm saying if the list size equals what the capacity or is greater than the capacity, I want to run these things, which will update that value here to full so that the next time someone runs through, it'll stop right there. I'm going to handle the landing page redirects, which is just an API call, which we talked about earlier. And here I'm using those data pills from here and here. And then finally, I'm going to update the token, which is right here, my CTA token. So actually, let me change it to, I'm going to change it to register so you can see this. All right, and we can see that right now there are 29 people in the program. So the next one should change. So when we go to view approved page, so here register looks good. I can see that this is the promo, cap promo active. All right, that's going to run. Let me, I have to give it 1 second. And I want to see if, let me look to see if so we'll see that this is now changed back to join waiting list. And I might need to, and we'll see that now this is also redirected to the waiting list landing page. So when people fill out the form, we can just add them to a wait list. So again, minimal work that would need to be done. Really, the person in Marketo would just have to come in here and add in these IDs and set the capacity. But then, if you're doing some sort of an offer or a limited party, limited event, you can now manually do this. And this was a request we got quite a bit. So no, I went through everything very quickly. Did want to give some time for questions, and I know I can say a little bit too if people want to stay and ask questions. Yeah, opening it up. Oh, and it got changed to yes here, so that next time it runs through, it's going to stop.
Good stuff, Jason. Gets the wheels turning for
Yeah.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the key is really just, like I said before, find that use case, try something and learn, and then go from there, right?
Yep. And yeah, and even just, create a test program with a bunch of smart campaigns and try to activate them and deactivate them where you're putting filters on for it's like only your email address. You don't have to worry about them. It's better to practice than starting right in the wild. But yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and to your point earlier, Jay, yeah, it's not as intimidating as it looks. Because I know when I used to look at those docs, I'm like, well, I'm never going to get that, and it's pretty easy.
I know we talked a lot about, free tools and things like that today. And I know you mentioned that Workato does have, it's a paid service. Just out of curiosity, do you know how much it costs to use that platform?
I'm not sure on the cost of Workato, and I think it's all really based on the amount of recipes that you want. So I think it is based on them, but yeah, not 100% sure. I just get the benefits of using it for free myself, so I haven't dove into the cost of it.
No worries.
Are there free tools that you've used that like are comparable?
Yep. So like Zapier, I don't know if you can use Workato with free level of Zapier. I'd have to check that again. I think that's actually a paid one. If it is too, I know that Zapier is a little bit maybe not as powerful as like a Workato, but there's stuff you can do. In fact, I saw Brad, I forget, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, like Brad Couture, something like that, on LinkedIn posted something, I think just last week, on how he uses Marketo and Zapier together. So there are other tools, out there, obviously, that can do these types of things, but I don't think there's a free tool that I know of that would work with Marketo, because Marketo is always kind of considered like a premium type of integration for whatever reason. So.
I have no additional questions, Jason. I thought this was awesome. And Jay, I think you said it best when you said it really gets the wheels turning. That's good. Yeah.
So I'm hoping I saved everyone on the call like 10 hours of future work on this call. That was my goal. So, hopefully it's already paying dividends.
Yeah, for me, I'm really excited. You showed me a lot and a lot to think about. So really thank you a lot for going through that, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to look at trying to fix some of the, proper case for some of our person records, because we want to do some personalization in some cases, but like I look at our data and I'm like, yeah, it's going to look really crappy.
Hello, lowercase
Jason.
J.
Hey, what's up?
Jason.
Yeah. So,
why is your email screaming at me?
Yeah, right.
I also, real quick before everybody leaves, I think Isabel's online. I want to say thank you for joining and just say I think she'll be joining in the future. And too bad she won't be able to join us in person, but if we do these online, I'll be inviting her. So yeah.
Awesome. Always
Thanks for
welcome.
having us up.
Yeah, welcome. Awesome.
All right, so we will take this recording. We'll take the materials that Jason's going to share with us, and we'll send out another link to the study, the new certification, if anyone wants it. I also put it in the chat while we were talking earlier today. So we'll send all this out, but thank you everyone for showing up. If you have any questions, let us know, let Jason know. He's an awesome resource. He's also quite funny. If you want to follow him or check out his memes on LinkedIn. But thank you everyone for coming. It's great to see faces and hear voices.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Guys.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye everyone.
Bye-bye. Have a good one.